Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, EmeraldPlanet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the EmeraldPlanet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the EmeraldPlanet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we go to on a globe that will soon have 9 billion people by 2050, and also a very urbanized world with over 80% of the world's population living in major metropolitan cities. Many of these will be what they call super cities and are mega cities with 10 to 30 million people in each. And so how are we going to be able to provide the basic infrastructure as well as the healthcare, education, and all the other needs of these new citizens as they come onto the planet? I have a gentleman sitting right beside me who is very much involved in this, thinking about it, as well as actually working on what's called the new smart cities. This is Doug Smith. He's a senior advisor on strategic alliances with the Chesapeake Crescent initiative. And Doug, welcome to the EmeraldPlanet.
Thank you very much, Sam, for having me.
I'm glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about the Chesapeake Crescent initiative, what it is, and then we'll start talking about the Safe Plus Smart Cities.
Absolutely. So the Chesapeake Crescent initiative is really a regional collaborative. It brings together a variety of individuals from the Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia region to advance innovation generally in the region. Work with universities, with the federal and state, as well as local governments. And basically it's to also bring together, in this particular case, the private sector for the region. And so what we're working on today is currently a safe and smart cities practice.
Yeah, and looking at that, what is the Safe Plus Smart Cities? And we have to emphasize that plus aspect of it.
We do. So Safe Plus Smart. So typically the industry and other organizations have looked to the smart cities, but they've ignored the safe aspect of it. And safe and smart are literally synonymous. You cannot have a smart city without it being a safe city, and vice versa. So what we've done is brought the two concepts together to address that for our cities within the region.
Mm-hmm. Looking at the core objectives of this coalition, and I think you're going to enumerate some of the people that are part of the coalition, and maybe we should say, why a coalition? Because many times people think, well, we have the idea, we have whatever resources we need, we just go do it. Mm-hmm. But yet, you've taken a very different tact and a different approach in doing this. And so through the coalition and the program, mm-hmm. what are you addressing and why this coalition concept?
So why the coalition? So the coalition is important in this particular region. Certainly in the DC area, coalitions are very synonymous with getting things done. Well, you typically have organizations that are going to focus on smart cities, but they're typically an industry-led organization. And in this particular case, we've found the need to bring a variety of different sectors together. We have the need for government, we have the need for private industry, we have the need for finance. There's a number of different partners that need to come together to work together to solve the problems of creating those safe and smart cities for the region.
Mm-hmm. Looking at this, this is something that's called a PPP, this public-private partnership. So if you could describe what is a PPP, this public-private partnership, and how does that actually add and assist and enhance what you're trying to do as far as the cities themselves are concerned, but also all the surrounding locations and industries and others that are going to be involved?
So, first part of your question, what is a public-private partnership? Public-private partnership is really where industry and government have come together to jointly work on some problems or some challenges, if you will. And in this particular case, that's exactly what the coalition is brought together to do, is to form that public-private partnership to work on those. The second part of your question, how does the creation help cities and industry? So that really is because we're able to bring together these industry partners that provide pro bono expertise, and that is best practice subject matter expertise. That's something that's absolutely essential for our cities, because typically cities are very siloed, and so they are not getting the best of industry practices to address those challenges. So what we do is, with the coalition, we're bringing them together to address the day-to-day operations, to address then the long-term issues, such as long-term resiliency. You cannot go anywhere today without somebody wanting to focus on Hurricane Sandy. That's a resiliency, it's a long-term issue. As well as the economic development needs and the economic growth for our cities, and then just the improving the lives of our citizens in those cities.
Now, looking at the diverse organizations that are part of this coalition, we've talked about industry, we've talked about government, but also you have education, you have NGOs, and a number of other types of groups, organizations involved in that. How do you tie all these together, and how does education work with the NGOs and then with the business? Because they have different missions, different activities, different thrust, but at the same time, you're putting them, weaving them together literally in this coalition.
Correct. So what we've done is, in looking at the needs of the city, or a city, and for the pilot projects that we're working towards. So as an example, we brought together industry partners, as I say. So we've got Cisco Systems that is a key partner, Schneider Electric. We have in the region, we have Variant Security. We have a firm called AtHoc, which provides mass notification systems, and a company that provides the situational awareness here locally called Priority 5. So we bring those capabilities which address the needs, the various needs of energy, with internet technologies, communications, mass notification, security, water, wastewater, transportation, and we bring all of those capabilities from the industry side. Then we mix into that, we bring together finance, because at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to provide some money for a project, a safe and smart project. We bring together the finance and law. Okay, so we have to address the issues of law and policy. We bring together then the regional universities. The regional universities bring some expertise that private industry does not have access to. So they provide the research and the thought leadership, if you will.
Well, I think it's fantastic, and again with this thought leadership and also the energy. There's just a tremendous amount of energy on these various campuses, and they're looking around the globe for the professors as well as the students, both graduate and undergraduate, and so that makes a real difference. Looking at the safe side of this, let's focus a little bit about that, Doug. You know, what does that safe actually mean, and how does that relate to all these other activities and resources are being drawn together, as we talked about just a little earlier on?
So safe. Safe is, it starts literally at the consumer or with the citizen. You have the need for those individuals to go out on the street to be safe, any given time of night or day. And there are multiple ways that you can address their safety. The safety comes down to lighting. As an example, to be able to provide sufficient lighting for them, the ability to use cameras, not in a big brother approach, but in terms of protecting them, looking at the video analytics as an example to see when there is suspicious activity in the area. There's a multitude of ways that you can address the safety. That's just on your day-to-day basis. Then from a long-term perspective, you look at how do you notify the citizen in the event of an adverse event. And so you have companies like AtHoc Communications that provide the capability to provide that mass notification to get people out or shelter in place and take care of themselves on a day-to-day basis.
Well, you're really on the leading edge of all this, Doug, because when you have the safe plus the smart cities, I mean, there are many that have, smart city types of initiatives, but you've added that safe. So when you look around the globe, you hear about, almost biblical, wars and rumors of wars and all this negative activity is going on the planet. How are the leadership within these various cities looking now at this component of safe almost on the same venue as all the other basic infrastructure of roads and bridges and healthcare and education as far as having a viable and a vibrant city?
Wow, that's a deep question. There's a lot of elements to that, Sam, quite frankly. From a safe perspective, if you take something such as, again, an event such as Hurricane Sandy, you have a safety element there. The need to be able to do a better job in prediction of those adverse events, to be able to then recover from those adverse events, to be able to be more resilient when those adverse events come about. So the coalition is going to be looking at a multitude of areas to try to address those safety and safe aspects, as well as the smart. The smart technologies are fairly self-evident. You have to just look to your smartphone today, to deal with smart. The apps that you have available for your day-to-day needs. The safety, that's a little bit of a deeper subject.
Yeah, and looking at the apps, talking about it, we think of, maybe there's 5 or 10 that we use, and there's literally well over 100,000 or maybe several hundred thousand apps. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. Looking at this, and then we have one question go out on this balance between sustainability and resiliency. Mm-hmm. Where is the overlap, and is there any difference between those two as far as the urban areas of the future?
Sustainability is, you can look at that again in several veins. Sustainability is in terms of economic sustainability. You have sustainability in terms of your technical needs on a day-to-day basis from an energy. If you need to convey the infrastructure. Okay, so you have water, wastewater, you have electricity. They're sustainable. They need to be sustainable. You also have a need to have those infrastructure systems hardened, and the hardening of those will provide then that long-term resiliency. So I see the fact that the two, the sustainable and the resilient, are actually co-joined.
So they're really one and the same. Where do you see for the future of safe plus smart cities over the next 5, 10, and 15 years? And we have about 15 seconds to do all
15
that.
seconds. So we're going to address, first of all, we want to get this project and these pilot projects right. That's the first thing. And we need to have then a sustainable model for the future. That's what I'll leave it on.
That's fantastic. This is Doug Smith, Douglas, the formal name, Senior Advisor, Strategic Alliances, Chesapeake Crescent Initiative, and doing very excellent work as they really are developing the models for smart cities, but adding the safety component to that, resiliency and sustainability as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo.
I would like to speak English better.
Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
Would you notice if you were missing half your kidney function? According to the National Kidney Foundation, 20 million people have chronic kidney disease, and 20 million more may be at risk and not even know it. Anyone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or a family history of chronic kidney disease is at risk. Early diagnosis is vitally important. To get the whole story, talk to your doctor and visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org or call for a free brochure. Because when it comes to chronic kidney disease, you might not know the half.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. as we're looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technologies, service, products, and of course the people and the processes that are making a difference as we go through the 21st century. And as we go to a planet of adding 2 billion new people by 2050, how are we going to be able to take care of them when actually the whole world is rapidly and very fast becoming more urban? They're saying by 2050 that over 80% of the world's population will be living in urban areas, and now we have about 54%, and already we're saying the cities are very crowded, and we'll be adding about another 100 cities as mega cities, somewhere around 20 to 30 million people in each area. And of course, in some of these cities actually extend across countries, not just within the boundaries of the country themselves. So a lot of change happening. A gentleman sitting right beside me is part of all that change and looking at how we're going to be able to take care of this. This is Clifford, and he goes by Cliff. J. Thomas, he is a managing director of Cisco Systems, Inc., very famous international company. And Cliff, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. Tell us a little bit about Cisco Systems, Inc., and what do you do actually as managing director of this organization?
Sure. So Cisco, when you think about it, fundamentally we're connecting the unconnected, right? And so we're trying to leverage technology to create differentiated outcomes, whether those are for businesses, communities, or otherwise. And you think about our heritage, you know, husband and wife team in Stanford University were in 2 different labs and they couldn't communicate, so they created this multi-protocol router, our founders. And we keep doing that day in and day out now in communities and cities. How do we get disparate systems to communicate with each other to create differentiated value? What is really exciting is only 1% of the things that can be connected are. That means we got 99% of the world's things can be connected. Unprecedented opportunities for not just economic, but also social.
And that's where we come with this phrase, I believe, the Internet of Things.
Yes,
and very important. But it's really interesting about the background that this started literally as a couple, as a husband and wife team,
right.
And now it's morphed in literally a worldwide major corporation. So I don't know how long you've been there, but what have you seen as far as the expansion of this organization and the importance that it's bringing not only into NAFTA, North America,
right.
but all around the globe?
So I lead our practice for smart connected communities for the Americas, North, South, and Central America. And when you think about Cisco, you know, we've moved from the virtual world to the physical world. So we're just trying to take what we've done and what we participated in the first wave of the internet to the second wave, which is place matters and things are being connected. And so what I think is really exciting is the way that human beings interact with it. So it's not just about the Internet of Things. McKinsey came up with that 10 years ago, right? It's around how do we take people, process, data, and things and intersect them for differentiated outcomes. And so that's why we're really excited about that opportunity.
Well, and I'm going to let you take off on that because we have this image, the Internet of everything.
Yeah, there you go.
So not just the Internet of things.
Cisco always adds a few more things to it,
well,
right?
That's okay. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
So how are you leveraging this? Because as you look around the globe, and we had that image of, you know, you're plugging in,
right?
But you've really, in a sense, psychologically and maybe even emotionally, you've gone the reverse. Many people thinking we've gone beyond place things, and now we're, you know, tying together the universe, and we've got outer space and the deepest oceans.
Right.
But now you've really taken this back to we really are about things and about people. That's a very different perspective.
It is, because it's around the insights you get from people and the way that they interact with the physical world, if you will, right? And so in our practice in smart connected communities, we're really focused on four main things. We're trying to figure out how do we help cities and communities create efficiencies, to shift budgets, to create budget, to do something unique for its citizens. The third is, what are the assets that they have, and how can we actually leverage those assets, in many cases people, to create maybe new revenue streams for the city? But then was where it gets interesting. We're like, how do we engage citizens in a different way? I have two boys, 19 and 17. They have two statuses in life. They're either asleep or they're online, right? Mm-hmm. And God bless my mom and dad, 83 and 84, and they got a flip phone that I gave them, and they look at my little smartphone, like, what are those little square things? I go, those are apps. So we've got this digital divide. Well, the 17 is going to be a voter soon, right? So the 19 is, and my mom and dad are voters, right? So how do citizens engage with government in a more robust manner? So if we can save, make, and engage with citizens in a more robust way, now we've got an interesting platform. Now we can attract talent, because it's no longer countries against countries, it's cities against cities around attracting talent for economic growth. So how do we help these communities not just build safe and smart communities, but how do we create an economic engine, an inclusive economic engine, to participate and create new models, new businesses, and new outcomes?
And the whole thing about this, really, the base of all this, Cliff, of course, is education, as well as everything else we think about, infrastructure, you know, the roads, the bridges,
Correct.
And healthcare and all that. But education really is the core of all this. So how do we look into these cities that traditionally looked upon, you know, 100, 150 years ago, they're, you know, the paradigms as far as, you know, the excellence as far as education. Now they're looked upon as, you know, coming late, you know, to the game. So, but I think Cisco is actually helping and working with this. So there's some certain core areas that you're trying to do with these smart cities in order to take them forward in the 21st century. What are some of those things?
Yeah, I think fundamentally when you think about our company, a communications, an IT company facilitating, using technology to do so, we have network academies, which is training young people to figure out how do we build these systems, right? To arm them with really marketable skills and talents to go drive that value into these communities and cities. And then in addition to that, we're teaming up with NGOs like the Chesapeake Crescent Initiative, we're teaming up with universities, we're teaming up with incubators, accelerators, to have a hyper-local flair of expertise of what's needed in that community, coupled with some foundational skills as well.
Yeah, looking at that, I know that you're working on a very impressive and proactive project with Newark, Delaware.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what some of the core areas of that, and then we want to talk about some of the discoveries that you're making, you know, through that whole effort.
Sure. So for Newark, when you think about it, it's not the biggest city in the United States, but it's got a really great DNA about who they are as a community, and they've got a very forward-thinking willingness and a can-do attitude around embracing technology, so long as it creates an outcome to benefit its citizens. And so we're looking at efficiencies around intelligent lighting. We're looking at opportunities around citizen engagement, leveraging social media plus the connected capabilities. And then we're also looking at other different platforms that will attract other kinds of urban services around traffic, water management, et cetera. So we're not quite complete with the effort right now, so it would be inappropriate for me to kind of share any more than that. But what I would say is the organization and Newark has been great to work with. They've been phenomenally open-minded around what is the art of the possible, and we'll share with you what makes sense for our community as well.
Now, looking at this satellite map of the United States,
Sure.
One of the things is we were saying, well, we're wasting a lot of electricity we're brightening up the sky. And
we sure are.
Evidently, we can see this from virtually every aspect of space. But at the same time, I think this goes back to that very early image of plugging in. Mm-hmm. And it looks like the United States, and of course Canada as part of NAFTA, is definitely plugged in.
Yeah.
So where does Cisco fit in all this, and how much of all this dynamic is part of what you're doing?
Sure.
And then how does that leverage into these safe plus smart cities?
Absolutely. So we're a platform play, right? So we sit right in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, 75% of the world's energy is consumed by cities that are only 40% efficient. And those cities that are only 40% efficient those buildings are only 40% efficient as well. So what an unprecedented opportunity. The image you see there is outdoor lighting. There's 4 billion high-end density lights in the globe, 1 billion of them in North America alone. So we're working on creating intelligent lighting that reduces energy from 50 to 80% on outdoor lights and making them intelligent. What I mean by intelligent isn't just replacing LEDs, but being able to dim them up and dim them down whether there's activity around them, making them more intelligent. And if we can do that, consume less energy. It's really simple.
Well, the whole thing about this, just looking at this and leveraging off of this, Cliff, is that we're looking at also CO2, the greenhouse gas emissions. People think of cars automatically, mining, energy. Actually, it's just buildings that has the largest share of that, about 37% of the 100% of the CO2 that's being emitted into the universe. But tying in schools education, going back to that, I know that Cisco really has as part of its mantra, tying in new generations. You talked about your children along with your parents.
Right.
How does all that fit?
Yeah, I think, at a fundamental perspective, what we're trying to do is look at specific business use cases and understand where those gaps are. So then we can go back from an education perspective and figure out what are the skills required to fill those gaps. Whether those are technology skills, whether those are social skills from a development of a software application around inviting social inclusion. And we're working closely with the universities to build curriculum to offer those kinds of different platforms and educational platform for really students and even folks who want to do continuing education, whatever the case might be.
Well, many people have heard of the smart cities concept that's becoming almost part of the nomenclature. Excuse me, but intelligent urbanization, what is that?
So intelligent urbanization is really the focus on the triple bottom line, which is trying to figure out, and I think Doug talked about it before, around sustainability, and sustainability from a social, economic, and environmental sustainability, right? So when we think about intelligent urbanization, it isn't just about making a community smart, but it's to what end, right? And it's got to be, you were talking about CO2 emissions, right? You think about parking. A Parisian spends 6 years of their life looking for a parking spot. Well, why don't we make it 6 years of their life, right?
My goodness.
And guess how much wasted energy they're spending on petrol doing that, right? So if we could make things easier for folks to find an asset, a parking spot, and make it a more pleasurable experience, that's a positive. We're reducing CO2, and guess what? That's sometimes the second largest revenue generator for a city. So what we're trying to do is, from an education perspective, is look at these use cases and understand where could and what are the areas of opportunity for education.
Well, looking at these whole things, we're just running out of time. The intelligent urbanization, smart cities, where do you see Cisco fitting into that, and where are you going to be, say, in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, we're a system solutions company, and what you're going to see is we like to walk across the street in a crowd. So we like to partner with folks, whether those are cities or whether those are universities or NGOs, but also technology companies, because we feel we're a facilitator of those outcomes. So you'll see Cisco making more and more partnerships. You'll see us crafting and developing more systems and solutions that are focused on the outcomes for citizens and communities.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. This is Clifford, goes by Cliff J. Thomas. He's the managing director of Cisco Systems, Inc. And it's just fantastic what you talked about, this collaboration, fitting together, these safe plus smart cities. But I just love this term, intelligent urbanization, because that's where we need to go in the future. Thank you for being with us as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
I helped turn my child's public school into a whole new kind of school. One with a curriculum that really motivates kids. One that has extended hours, 6 days a week, year-round. With loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One that has support services like medical and dental right there. A school where parents' involvement is encouraged. Where teachers have more time to teach. And students are excited about learning. There's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. You can help turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
It's coming right to your neighborhood.
And when it does, you may be surprised. It's your Social Security statement of your benefits, and it's going to help you plan your financial future. Your benefit statement will tell you how much Social Security you're eligible to receive and when you'll get it. Then you'll know how much you need to save for retirement, because that's coming too. The future is in your hands. Choose to save.
The toxic fumes from this meth lab are seeping into Jamie's sinus cavity. Ammonia vapors invade her throat. Toxic gases fill her lungs. Jamie's body is deteriorating. And she doesn't even know it.
Jamie, dinner.
So, who has the drug problem now? Find out how meth affects you at drugfree.org/.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. and the United States as we're looking at 144 different nations. We're looking for what we call the best of the best practices, the processes, the people, technologies, and services that are making a difference as we go towards 2050. And by the time we reach there, we're to have a population on this planet by about 9 billion people. Many people are saying we can't take care of the ones that we have now, so what we're going to do when we have 2 billion more? And so a gentleman sitting right beside me is one of the opinion and think leaders in the United States and around the globe as far as the notion of how we're going to take care of and adding and abetting and enhancing these smart cities, as they're called, for North America and other places on the planet. This is James. He goes by Jim P. Anderson. He's Vice President of the Smart Cities North America Initiative, and he's part of the Schneider Electric Infrastructure Development Program. Jim, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Oh, thanks for having us, Sam. Appreciate it.
And we should say that you're here as part of the Chesapeake Crescent initiative, and we thank them for allowing you to be with us, and thank you for Schneider Electric, which is a global company. So tell us a little bit about Schneider Electric, but adding this infrastructure development to them. This is really intriguing.
So it's really more. So Schneider Electric is a global operation. Basically, we're headquartered in Paris, but we have headquarters all over the world. In fact, in North America, we have roughly 25,000 workers in North America, and 25% of our business happens here. So Schneider Electric, if nothing else, is an infrastructure company. We talk about being a global specialist in energy management, so we focus in on energy, but the broad definition of energy. So it includes not just electricity, but it includes all forms of energy. So from my perspective, I look at the infrastructure side of what it is we do and how that infrastructure starts to play itself out within the public sector domain, okay? And really, as you said earlier, cities start to grow, and this whole notion of urbanization and reurbanization is certainly taking off from a trend perspective that we're seeing. And cities just in and of themselves today are already stretched to the limits from an infrastructure standpoint, either from an aging infrastructure or from an overused infrastructure. So what are the things we can be doing to help cities improve their infrastructure going forward as they continue to grow and continue to amass more and more people within them?
Well, there's been, in some ways, a hollowing out of cities, particularly in the last 20 years or so, but there seems to be a resurgence. People are moving back into the cities. They're wanting to use more of the mass transportation as people are observing climate change going on around them. Weather patterns are changing. The weather conditions are becoming more violent and, very different than what people are experienced with in the past. And I know that you're part of this, the Chesapeake Crescent initiative on this Safe Plus Smart Cities. So from Schneider Electric perspective, what does that really mean to you? And what do you see the evolution of this in the Mid-Atlantic states within the United States?
Sure. So the smart city, topic has been around for quite a while now, and we continue to, I would say, try to improve and leverage and make smart the current infrastructures that cities have, right? So it's around mobility, transportation and energy and water and buildings and security and all those different elements around that. And how can we improve the efficiencies of those existing infrastructures as we know them? The thing that becomes interesting that Chesapeake Crescent Initiative has done is taken on this safe part of it, which more and more cities, as more and more events take place, whether they're man-made or whether they're nature-made, it becomes a serious issue that cities need to respond to. And so far, we use the example of Hurricane Sandy up the east coast of North America, of the U.S., and we look at what didn't go well relative to that. And so what can we be doing to improve the resiliency, to improve the safety around those kinds of events that happen within those cities? So we continue to investigate new and different ways to go do that. And Chesapeake Crescent is being an NGO, being an organization that helps us gain access into cities as an interested third party to help technology people come in and have deeper conversations with how we can improve the cities that we're dealing in.
Well, looking at this slide we have right here, and let's just take this for a moment, the sustainability, livability of this whole aspect, but you were throwing in the resiliency of this and Hurricane Sandy as far as the Northeast are concerned, and then of course all the various hurricanes and other kinds of natural and man-made catastrophe in the Gulf and up Florida, the East Coast. And how does all four of these fit now together? So it's more like hand in glove, or it's the other part of the puzzle to make sure that cities really do last beyond, and as they're adding more people, more demands, to make sure that they can actually provide the services in a very adequate and efficient way.
Sure. So from an efficiency standpoint, like I just mentioned, we talk about how can we improve the overall efficiency of how the city operates from an operational perspective, because that's generally where our domain sits. So how can we, and then what savings can we garner from improving the overall efficiency of that? And then we can go to utilize that to go spend potentially on sustainability. Sustainability, again, we'd look at it from the broad view of sustainability, which is not just about environment, which is generally what people think about first, but it's also about economic development and how can we continue to drive, getting the right talent and the right people and the right businesses within cities, as well as the social aspect, including the citizens of the city. So, which then leads into the livability, which then gets into what's going to attract the people that are going to come there, that want to go live there. So is it the schools? Is it the outdoor activities? What are the kinds of things that help to make the city more livable? And then the resilience side then just becomes the next evolution, the next element on top of that says, okay, so no one wants to go live in a city that has issues from a resilience or from a safe perspective. In fact, I've talked to a number of mayors in very prominent cities, and they basically are very quick to tell me that there's no such thing of a smart city that's not a safe city. So safety is a big element on every mayor's plate relative to what they're trying to achieve and what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and this is also the whole thing about what's going on internally, what's within the city itself, the surrounding areas, but also this notion of what is the world bringing to us as far as terrorism is concerned. Right. And a lot of that, of course, and as one of the things that you're probably concerned about, is the resiliency of the basic infrastructure, telecommunications, the Internet of Things, and as the Cisco people talk about the Internet of Everything. So looking at a city like this, you provided 3 of these, or several cities, or a number of cities you're working with. How do you balance all these things and make sure that no matter where it is, where you decide to go, that this is going to be a livable place for my family and me and the future of where we're going by, towards 2050.
So the first place that we start is we start talking to the city and the city leadership, okay, and understanding what does the leadership really want to have done relative to the city. And the reason they got to be city leaders is because they were essentially voted in by the citizens. So it really starts with the citizens moving in. Does the city have the strong leadership that they need to have to go take them to the next level of where they need to get to, where they want to go as far as the city is concerned. And then we talk about what are their issues. What are their primary and prioritized list of issues that they have that they need to go solve. And then we start working off that list, but we do it from a holistic perspective, because it's important to take the holistic view of what's going on, such that you're not redoing things over and over again. So if you need to go, invest in a new water system or new wastewater system, okay, so what's the next element associated to that? Because typically what we're talking about doing from improving the efficiency is putting in a system, but putting it in such that you're able to do two things. Number one, make the system smart, which means more efficient, okay? But then also be able to share information back to the Internet of Things or the Internet of Everything, to be able to share that information across the other verticals of a city. So be able to share what's going on from the water department, what's happening there relative to the energy business, the transportation piece of it, or the communications piece of it. So it's about integrating all of those different pieces that becomes the real linchpin of this thing. Granted, you can't do everything at once, so you got to start somewhere. Pick a place. The key there is making sure you start.
Now, looking at what are some of the major things that you're learning that needs to be overcome in the beginning, so it allows you this platform from which you can work, because you said you can't do everything because there's no budget on the planet that allows people to do that. So you have to be strategic. So how do you be strategic, sustainable, and resilient all at the same time?
So I think that, again, it starts with the city and the city leadership and what's going on relative to the city, but you have to understand, what do they have an appetite for? What can they go do? Paint the vision for where it can go in the future, and then start working toward that vision. The thing that I think is interesting that we're starting to learn and starting to understand more is recognizing there needs to be more innovation around different things. Not so much from a technology standpoint, because technology is in and of itself going to continue to flow and continue to go do what it does. The innovation really needs to come in an area around business model, financing models, and those kinds of things. So that's going to be an important innovation going forward. And the second piece of this thing, really, we need to understand and really get a better handle on, is this whole idea around behavior. How do people behave? What needs to happen relative to the behavior to start around change and change management to be able to move this thing forward?
Now, to do that, what are some of the best practices that you're discovering, that you're learning through these processes? We've seen the skyline of Houston and Chicago. You've got Boston here. What are some of the best practices that then can be shared with other localities, but to enhance the city within which you're working at the time?
So for instance, in Houston, we are very much involved with the city itself in trying to improve its overall efficiency from building automation and building use of water, energy, and waste coming out of the building. And so we've gone through and used a new business model around performance contracting, which basically says the savings that you generate from putting in this new system not only pays for the system, but then becomes an annuity for the city over a longer period of time. So that's a different kind of a business model than the typical one where you want something and I pay for something. This is something that's done over a long period of time, and it's done with the guarantee of Schneider Electric.
So it's kind of a give and get simultaneously, and in a sense you're giving before you're actually asking for something in return.
Correct, and we guarantee it. So so there's no risk from a city standpoint to go take that forward. So they love that kind of a model. Okay, you know, in Boston's an interesting place. Boston has a very active climate action plan that they're involved in, and so what Boston didn't know, and what we're trying to help Boston understand, is what is the baseline? They have no idea how their metrics and how they operate. So we started to help them put in a dashboard of how to give them visualization of the metrics of how they're actually operating as a city, such that they know where to go next. Right now, it's you don't know what you don't know, and so for them, they didn't know what they didn't know. So they said, okay, I need to start somewhere. So let's start with putting a dashboard in, and we can go with and
That's
use the
fantastic. We'll go back to that. We'll go out on the slide. Anyway, James P. Anderson, thank you for being with us, Vice President and Smart Cities North America Initiative, Schneider Electric. And thank you for being with us as we're learning about how to make this as we move forward to create the Emerald Planet.
Some dreams are universal. Dreams that inspire us. Multiple sclerosis is a devastating disease that changes lives forever. The National MS Society does more for people with MS than any organization in the world. But we can't do it alone. To get involved, visit us online at nationalmssociety.org or call 1-800-FIGHT-MS. This is why we're here. because nobody dreams of having multiple sclerosis.
What's wrong with this picture? Half of young Americans can't locate economic powers like Japan and India. 20% can't even find the Pacific Ocean. Without geography, our children aren't ready for the world. Geography is everywhere. It's incredible creatures, rhythm, fashion, flavor. It's economics and politics. It's change. Understanding connections between people and places is critical in the 21st century. That's why we created mywonderfulworld.org. Go there now for your free parent and teacher action kits and give our kids the power of global knowledge. Because kids who understand our world today can succeed in it tomorrow.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. on a weekly basis as we look around the globe in 144 different nations. I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, the President, Executive Director of EmeraldPlanet, Director and host for the EmeraldPlanet TV. And we're looking around the globe so that we can bring you the best practices and also to be that link, L-I-N-K, as far as these various resources that are needed in every corner of the planet as we go to a population base of over 9 billion people. And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me who is actually working on much of this, thinking about it, but also to take this whole notion of safe plus smart cities, moving it forward as we go towards 2050. This is Ramon J. Pinero. He is the Director of Systems Engineering and Professional Services at AtHoc, Inc. And Ramon, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me today.
Glad to have you on the Emerald Planet.
Flattered to be here.
Well, we're flattered to have you. It's a great pleasure. Tell us about AtHoc.
Sure. Dr. Hancock, thanks again. And at AtHoc, what we do...
You can call me Sam.
Thanks, Sam. Thank you, Sam. At AtHoc, what we do is we bring a networked crisis communication system to communities and organizations that really goes beyond simply alerting people in the event of an emergency. Our solution enables organizations, cities, counties, other external agencies to have a bidirectional communication and access to people during a crisis. So we do that within various organizations and entities, and are able to allow the quick response to emergency incidents and enable emergency responders to collect information directly from the field, allow them to account for their individuals so they can better respond to resource directions and where they need to go. And finally, we are able to provide a secure way in which to have organizations communicate with one another.
I think it's fantastic. And looking at the slide that you provide us for here, making the world safer, I know this is something through the Chesapeake Crescent initiative. Mm-hmm. They've added this safe plus, the plus sign, smart cities. So why would you get involved with an organization like this? And I know that your focus is really on safe and secure and allowing this open communications so that everybody knows what's going on in their universe. How do you actually do that?
That's right. So really in a nutshell, what AtHoc's about is connecting organizations, people, devices, and external entities to better prepare for, respond to, and recover from emergency situations. With our involvement with the CCI, we saw and really liked their collaborative approach of them bringing government and civilian stakeholders together in order to solve community-wide issues through the application of technology and processes. That fits well within the AtHoc mission, and saw a great fit to work with them directly.
Mm-hmm. Looking around the globe, there's almost 300 cities that are going to this mega city status, and that's anywhere from 10 to 30 million people. There are now some cities on the continent of Africa, which you don't normally think of that, where they're actually spreading across 3 countries.
Wow.
And so then among these 300, there's about 195 that are sitting on these category 6 to 8 earthquake faults. And so you have this great concentration of people, more and more people moving into the cities.
That's right.
And when you look at your alert, collect, account, and connect,
that's right.
How does all this fit together? So regardless if you're in Beijing or you're in Pretoria, South Africa, or you're in Paris, France, that people can continue to do this.
Well, we all heard about the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything. We've also heard about the Internet of People. And so again, what AtHoc's about is about connecting these organizations, devices, and people together to better respond in crisis situations. So specifically around earthquakes, we have devices that are set up to be triggered by sensors that feed information into our network. That information then again gets passed on to organizations that can use that information to make more effective decisions about responses.
Yeah, so looking at this this network crisis communications, that you're really doing this in advance. So it's not like we're being reactive. I mean, most of the disasters around the globe, whether it's natural or man-made, is that we're responding to things. But I think in what you're doing, Ramon, is that you're actually anticipating and you're being proactive so that you're actually addressing many of these issues before it ever happens. How do you do that? What's the matrix of that goes into doing that?
Well, the first thing we do is invite those organizations and devices, if you will, onto a network. So we've created this networked crisis communication platform. And so those organizations who are on that network are able to invite external entities and plug in their devices into this network. Once they're onto the network, we provide a mechanism in which for them to communicate and then collaborate around those emergency situations. So again, if there's an earthquake that's detected as a sensor, it would get fed into the network. These organizations receive that information and can then deploy more resources on site, have those resources on site, then feed them information so they can make better decisions around how to apply resources.
Now we're looking at this here. We've had a number of programs about cloud computing, big data, and all these other things. And so here we are seeing it again, but this is the AtHoc cloud. Go back and just refresh the memory of our viewers both here and abroad. What is the cloud?
Sure.
How does that operate, and how is that sustainable and resilient so that people feel like they can have confidence that if something really happens that they actually will be protected, or at least they know what to do?
It's very important. So the cloud, in a sense, is the hub, and that what allows us to transcend systems that were put in place decades ago on premise, transcend their reliability issues that are inherent with these types of implementations, bring them to the cloud. That cloud then is built out, and there's a redundancy of the cloud. That means that that cloud's available to all of these people and organizations at any time and anywhere, and have those devices feed into the cloud, right? So those devices that may have been put in place in particular cities years ago can be made with the use of some of the technology that we developed to be smart devices. So that sensor that was not able to be part of the Internet of Things phenomenon is now able to do so by connecting a device and feeding it back into that cloud. That cloud then acts as a way in which to route messages and information, connect everybody around him to again develop a better response.
So looking at these images here, I know that you have, the cloud really is huge data processing centers, and where they're storing information and then being able to put that out. But we're trying to make things smarter, and we talk about smart cities. Is a city really smart? We talk about smart cars. Is a car really smart? And now the whole thing is, if you look at these images we have here, is that this interaction, collection, and dispersal of information. So if I'm an average citizen and I don't quite understand all this cloud business and how all this is connected, how do I look at this and then I take comfort in that somebody really is looking out for me and not just looking, to get me?
Well, we've recently launched an initiative within our solution called Connect, and what Connect's doing is really enabling these organizations to, as I had mentioned before, invite other organizations onto this safety network. Some of those organizations are responsible for notifying citizens within the community. And so through outreach and through our application, those citizens are able to, in a sense, get notified at the time of emergencies and feed information back into the emergency officials that have to make a decision about how to respond to particular events.
So what you're saying there, Ramon, is just like you know, our iPhone or you know, any kind of smartphone we have, or our you know, little portable computer, the iPads, whatever. This really now is becoming the center of the universe. But there's this whole network out there that's really surrounding, protecting this center of the universe. So as the individual, and what we're seeing here in this image, you know, you see the red dot, that's them. And yeah, but there's a whole universe out there.
And so what they're doing right now is they're acting as sensors. So some individual who may see a suspicious package is able to take a picture of that package, get it fed back into the cloud, and then the organizations who are responsible for monitoring for such events can then take the appropriate actions to respond to that particular package.
So looking at this, then what you want then, or what actually is being created, is that every citizen, all the almost 7 billion
That's
plus, really are in their own universe, and then in a sense they're now connected across the globe, so that they are an essential part of that universe as far as this safe plus smart cities.
That's exactly right, and that's key to our initiative around AtHoc Connect, to have those citizens be able to inform organizations on the network so they can make better decisions around crisis communication and crisis response.
One of the first things that goes outside of water usually is communications in these kinds of environments when we have these natural or man-made disasters. Looking at this, how do we have this resiliency, this redundancy built in, so that if you know one source of that energy is gone, there's something else that's coming behind it, or is that something that's still to come?
No, it's I think something that we have now, and it's key to a comprehensive solution around connecting these organizations, peoples, and devices, and being able to collect their information from the field. So that redundancy is built, again, back into the cloud. That's replicated, if you will, in different data centers across the United States and internationally in some cases. Folks who use things like sirens and different mechanisms on the city level also have redundancy within their solutions as well. And those redundancies come in the form of using devices and people along with their organization and the processes together in order to create a better response using our system.
Well, looking at all these devices, and I'm really glad you brought up that term, device. You know, the applications, we don't think about it as we're actually, you know, your smartphone or, you know, the iPad or whatever kind of miniature computer that you're carrying around with us really is its own node. It's connected to the internet. So if 10 around you goes down, it doesn't mean that yours is not going to be there. So I think, Ramon, that's what you're saying is that by having all these interacting, that there's built-in resiliency, redundancies, just in the little universe that we have, you know, at the coffee shop.
From citizens carrying their phones to first responders working within municipal organizations on special first responder networks, to the devices that are feeding information and other mechanisms into the cloud. That's the coverage around redundancy. That
Ramon, we've run out of time. We've got one last question. Where do you see AtHoc being in the next 5, 10, to 15 years? We got about 15 seconds.
Oh, AtHoc will be connecting, further connecting organizations for crisis and business critical communications. That's around people, devices, and organizations, and that's what we're about. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being on the
Cheers.
EmeraldPlanet
Thanks again.
TV. This is Ramon J. Pinero, Director of Systems International Engineering, Professional Services at AtHoc, Inc. Thank you for being with us, looking at this as we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.